Hi, Chad here from purplecollarlife. Tonight we've got some tree trimming to do. A limb fell down during the daytime today and got home late from work, so I only have a short amount of time. And one of the things that saves a lot of time is this Stihl pole saw. So up until about 3 years ago, this extendable pole saw with the saw blade and what we call the loppers, when you pull this down and the blade cuts the limb, this is what we use to trim the limbs that were hanging down from the driveway, looking up and down the main road to make it easier to pull out, and then along the sides of the yard where I mow, where the limbs grow out and end up being right in your face. So this is what we used until about 3 years ago. It worked fine, but works so much better is the Stihl pole saw. It was a little pricey. I'll put the price down below in the description. This is the HT 56C. I'm not even sure if they still make this exact model, but you can see it's got a chainsaw blade and it's very long. This goes on to that end. Runs just like a chainsaw. It takes chainsaw mix oil, takes bar and chain oil, and we'll show you some of the work that it does. As a note, I only use the ethanol-free gas, mix it with the Stihl synthetic 2-cycle oil, and I only use the Stihl bar and chain oil. I don't know if that really makes that much of a difference, but the ethanol-free gas makes a huge difference. I recommend everyone finds an ethanol-free gas supplier for all your lawn mowers and anything that has a carburetor. We found several because we need that kind of fuel in the boat. The saw I'm using is a saw I've had for a long time. It's a Stihl MS290, the Farm Boss. Not exactly sure how old this is. I'm going to guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years, give or take. But it's been super reliable. Got it at Fisher & Father. Another excellent Stihl product that we're really happy with. This was just the limb of a cherry that fell down in the wind. None of it's very big, none of it's very great wood, but it'll burn, especially for an outside fire. Probably avoid that for the wood stove. And the stack that needs split, I usually borrow my dad's Husky log splitter, but thinking about log splitter shopping this year. If anybody has any ideas, suggestions on what they think are great log splitters just for home use, small amounts of wood at a time, to get someone through the winter burning in the buck stove in the basement. Mackenzie and I like to make homemade bird feeders. We like looking out the back windows of the house and seeing the birds come up. We put this one plenty high enough that the deer couldn't possibly knock it on their hind legs. What we didn't anticipate was that the bear would be tall enough to not only move it, but swing it around the limb of the tree. So I think the feeder was actually a little bit higher than this originally, but you can see how high off the ground this is. When I came out in the morning, there were bear tracks in the sod here. He or she or they had stepped on the rocks and the sod to reach up and bat at this. It's got mud and fur prints on the bottom of it from them knocking it around trying to get the bird seed out. They just love that bird seed.
They're hungry.
None of this was on the to-do list for tonight, but when I got home and it was short on time tonight, not enough time to do the couple other projects I wanted to do tonight, but plenty of time to take care of these things that are quick and easy to do in an evening after dinner before it gets dark.
And it's finally cooler.
Before I built the house here, this was family land, and there was a small pasture field and then woods behind, so I cleared a lot of woods, but this area was an apple orchard, so you can see the remnants of the apple trees here. A lot of them haven't really survived. A lot of water flow comes down across the yard here and this gets pretty wet. So there are still apple trees in here that produce apple. Nothing that you could really use for any applesauce or just apples to eat. Mostly they turn out like junk, and I've tried to trim a couple of them back and they just aren't coming back. Now we do have some nice apple trees out front that are doing great, but these ones in the old apple orchard don't do very well. Project a little bit too big for tonight, but a lot of these apple trees need just cut down and cut up. They don't even burn very good for firewood, but they'd be fine for an outside fire just sitting around the fire. And that'll be a project for another night. We don't think this one's going to come back. We took the edge of this apple tree down. I'm hoping that that little sprout will come off at least for a few more years. The deer do like to eat the little apples that come off of it. So even on a short night, you don't have to look very far when you're a property owner to find a task you can accomplish. And I think the Stihl tools and the Polaris make the work a little bit more fun.
I wasn't happy when he bought the Ranger. I didn't think we needed another toy, but turns out I probably use it as much as or more than he does.
And it's been good. Mackenzie's 15. She won't be 15 for too long. And this has been good for her to practice driving, just in the yard, up in the woods. Like I said, we're open to suggestions for log splitters. The Husky that Dad has had from Tractor Supply has been great. If any log splitter manufacturers out there would like us to use one on the channel, we'd be more than happy.
Prior to us putting an addition on our house, our wood burner used to heat the entire house. But since then, we've almost doubled the square footage. So the wood burner doesn't quite keep up like it used to. We also have a pellet stove.
And I do like the pellet stove. It puts out a nice warm heat. But I would say to anyone considering one, if it's going to be in like the living room area, they constantly make noise in the wintertime. I think we have to have the television way too loud just to hear it over the background noise of the pellet stove.
Oh, they didn't wait on us. Came in the back way.
We haven't tamed these deer, they just like us. And every time they hear the Ranger, they think that there's food coming out to them.
Yep, they snuck right around behind us. Are you bringing your babies tonight? Are you letting the babies come out and eat?
Babies were running around like crazy in the woods earlier.
Don't tell on them. They'll be in trouble.
I don't know if the camera will give it perspective or not, but we're probably 25, 30 feet away from the salt block.
They still like that little platform.
That platform was Mackenzie's jumping off point for her zip line that went down towards the woods. Tonight was just about getting a little bit of work done in the time that we had. Thank you for joining us. Please click that subscribe button. We try to put out content Monday through Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Thank you.